Hello, this is Aaron Anderson, and I'm coming to you from Peace, Love, and Hippiness. And I would like to help expose the criminal justice system, the corruption, and how it has damaged my life. And hopefully, with millions of other viewers out there, I can get you to tell your stories as well of how your life has been damaged by the criminal justice system and or the government. Anyway, for my first story here, I am telling a story of Teresa Boulanger, how she entrapped me, abused me, both physically and sexually, and used the criminal justice system to basically hold me hostage in her house. So, I was escaping from Butte County, basically living in Chico, because a guy by the name of Weston Mickey wouldn't stop harassing me and threatening me and asking me for money. Anyway, that's a whole nother side note. So I had to get out of Chico, and I went up to a town named Redding in Shasta County to work on a medical marijuana petition, which, due to my brain injury I had suffered just previously, less than a year and a half before that, from being beaten in the head with guns, 3 9mm shot at, and then the next day almost being beat to death. I had severe trauma and PTSD and brain damage. I couldn't really stand up for myself. I couldn't communicate with the world very well. It was very, very traumatic thing to go through. But anyway, I made it to Redding to work on this campaign, and I ended up meeting this lady named Teresa outside of a grocery store while petitioning. And she started telling me her sad story about how her dog, her husband, and her dad had died all in the last year or so. And she was about to lose her house and whatever. And she had a $10 an hour manager job at Dairy Queen. And, I do have a big heart and I care about people. And so, I offered to train her to do what I was doing, and I told her how much she could make, and she was very interested. And she asked where I was living, and I was like, well, I'm not making that much money. I'm basically living in my vehicle. I had a old black Mercedes at the time, and so she's like, well, why don't you come and stay with me? And in this home, I'm going to lose it anyway, and I have a 16-year-old son, and, you could come be my roommate or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come and even help pay some rent and train you to do these petitions, and you'll make some great money. And, so I moved into her house, and I started training Teresa Boulanger how to petition, and we'd be out in public, and she would weirdly make me hold her hand, or be like, call her beautiful, or weird things like that a normal person wouldn't do. And she was 45 years old, and I at the time was 28 years old, and I was not attracted to her at all. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Physically, she kind of grossed me out. But it got to the point where she started forcing me to have sex with her. And things just got really weird. And she kept trying to make me call her beautiful. And she said I looked like her husband that had just died. And I don't know what kind of weird stuff she was going through, but I was freaking out and trying to plot my escape out of this residence. At the time, in those 20 days or so that I was there, it might have been a little bit longer, but I helped get her electric bill paid through some community bill pay program because she didn't have the money, and I helped her get her on some other assistance programs, and I helped set up a few other things for her, and tried to train her to work. However, she was more interested in trying to manipulate me and make me into, I guess, her husband and whatever. So I started plotting my escape, and because I knew she was pretty crazy. And one day when she was out at the store or something, I started running in and out of the house, packing up my belongings. And she got home during this, and she literally found me in the driveway and pushed my arms up in the air, like literally hit the bottom of my arms and made all of my stuff fall into the street. And I tried to pick it up, and she tried to headbutt me and run at me, and I had to do one more run back into the house because I couldn't find my wallet. I didn't know where it was. And during that period of time, she tried to tackle me and headbutt my chest with her head and run at me. And she's just this little small person. And I tried to restrain her a few times from hitting me or headbutting me or trying to tackle me as I was trying to get out of there. And I finally got my wallet, and I ran into my car, and I backed out of her driveway, and I left. I got the heck out of there. And I drove as fast as I could towards Washington State because I just wanted to get as far away from her as I could. And there was another campaign in Washington State opening up, so I might be able to work and afford a place to live. And anyway, I got up to basically Wairika in Northern California near the border of Oregon, and I got pulled over for a tail light out or something. And I was having a panic attack this whole time, because I had just been, physically abused by Teresa, and I was trying to escape from a very bad situation, and the police pull me over, and I'm having a panic attack. And they're accusing me of being drunk or high on marijuana, which I wasn't either. And I started getting chest pain. I asked to go to the hospital, and they took me to the hospital. And I heard these police, they were like these highway patrol people or whatever they were reading me laws and statutes on drinking and driving, and they wanted me to sign some paperwork or something to incriminate myself or draw blood or whatever they were trying to do. And I had just gone through something very traumatic, and they're trying to get me on a marijuana DUI. And I was like, officers, that THC stays in your system for 30 days. So if you took my blood, there's no way you would determine whether I had smoked today or 20 days ago. So, I'm not about to sign your paperwork. You're talking about alcohol anyway, and alcohol statutes and laws. And so I refused to sign their paperwork, and they went behind the curtain to conspire against me with the doctors. And they're like trying to say, oh, we need to get him to pee in a cup. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there in the hospital, kind of freaking out, and I needed to go to the bathroom. And I started saying, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom. And 10 seconds later, I peed the hospital bed because I wasn't about to let them take my urine and incriminate me on something after I just escaped this mad woman's house, and I was just trying to get to another job in another city away from this crazy woman who was abusing me and trying to entrap me in her house and make me into her sex slave or whatever she was trying to do, some weird craziness. And so they basically went and booked me in the jail and released me in the morning because they had absolutely no evidence to take me to court on any type of DUI or anything. By the way, people, when you do get pulled over and you're in these situations, refuse everything. Do not go along with their games. Do not sign paperwork. Do not tell them anything. Go to jail and do not give them evidence. Anyway, they released me the next morning, and there was obviously no court date because they had no evidence. And so I made it up to Seattle and started working. And I had gotten I was there for a few days, and I'd gotten a weird call from an investigator who said they were from Redding, and I thought it was a joke. And they're like, were you at Teresa Belangia's house? Were you in an argument with her? Whatever. And I was like, yeah, I was there. And honestly, I shouldn't have answered any questions, because that just gave them reason to go forward with their investigation. Anyway, I started receiving calls from Teresa, and I was just ignoring. And then she calls me up and says, oh, well, I'm hitchhiking up there on a truck, because her car at the time needed a lot of mechanical work and stuff. Teresa literally found out from one of my friends or somebody that petitioned outside of a grocery store where I was going. And she hitchhiked with semi-truckers all the way up to Seattle. And then she was telling me that she was pregnant and that I needed to come pick her up and this, that, and the other. And I'm like freaking out of my mind. I was like, I already didn't want to have sex with her. Now she's pregnant or whatever. And so I she finds me on the ferry docks where I was working. And she's like, she just started harassing me. And I tried to put her to work, and she just like totally went batshit crazy, caused a big scene. And during this time, she was telling me about her dad, Claude Belangia, and how she took care of him in the end of his life, and how it's not fair that she's probably going to be losing her home, because basically they had changed the will and they were trying to get her out of the will and leave her with nothing, even though Teresa Belangia was the only one to stay there for the last years and take care of her dying dad, Claude Belangia. And it turns out she was telling me that Claude had connections with the mafia and whatever, but he was a very nice man and had loaned and gave away a lot of money in his life and helped out a lot of people. And she helped him out in the end. And anyway, I believe it's her brother Claude Jr. that ended up with the majority of the property that her dad had owned, and her brother Stephen Belangia, which is now a special agent in the FBI, ended up with most of the stocks her father had invested in. Somehow he got his dad to agree that he should end up with a majority of the stocks, and basically leave her with nothing. And that's another thing. Teresa kept threatening me with her brother Stephen Belangia, who is in the FBI, and she had also told me about her brother, how her dad, Claude Belangia, got her brother Stephen Belangia off on a charge of doing cocaine and shooting fish in the river, which, that file's probably erased. I'm sure her father paid off the sheriff or whoever was charging Stephen Belangia with that charge. Otherwise, Stephen Belangia would not be a special agent in the FBI if that were so. But anyway, she told me all these weird facts about her family and got me to read her the will her father had left, and how it had been manipulated by her brothers and sisters, and they were taking away her house and whatever. Anyway, she kept threatening me with her brother Stephen and the FBI, Stephen Belangia, and threatening me with charges and saying that she was pregnant and all these things. And I had suffered serious brain damage and trauma from being beaten in the head with guns and almost beat to death the next day. I had suffered traumatic brain injury, and I didn't know what to believe. I believed people for what they said, and I believed that these threats were real. And, I wish her brother Stephen Belangia would have stepped in and done something about all this and her madness and her craziness, but he didn't. Anyway, so Washington State, so she gets me fired from the campaign and convinces me that she's pregnant. I need to come back to California with her. Well, I came back to California, and that lasted all of, I can't remember, maybe less than a month before I was trying to find somewhere else to escape to, because during that period of time she was physically violent and forced me to have sex with her, and she kept threatening me with her brother Stephen Belangia in the FBI, and threatening to take the rest of my money I made for the rest of my life because she's pregnant, and just weird crazy threats. And so then I found another campaign in Colorado, and I thought I was fortunate enough to, escape again. I'm going out to Colorado. I left my Audi Allroad behind. Or wait, actually at the time it was a Mercedes. It was an old Mercedes. And I left it behind. At that point, I didn't even care about a vehicle or anything. I just wanted to escape from this crazy, maniacal psychopath and her abuse and start a new life somewhere else, anywhere away from her. So I got the job on the campaign in Colorado, and less than a week later I get a phone call from Teresa Belangia while I'm in Colorado saying she's at the airport. She just arrived in Denver. Turns out she had hacked my phone records and got a hold of the guy who had hired me to work on the campaign in Colorado. And she was coming out there to basically harass me still and tell me she was pregnant and force me to sleep with her and work with her and ride along in the same car with her. And she forced me to let her give me blowjobs while we were out working in neighborhoods, which was really sick and twisted and disgusting. And forced me to sleep in the same hotel bedroom as her. And I tried to tell the campaign that's not what I wanted, but then she threatened me with her brother in the FBI and all this other weird stuff and all these other strange threats. And then I get a call in the middle of the night that her son, I get a call from the California Highway Patrol in the middle of the night that her son had crashed my Mercedes into a highway road sign and totaled it. And so, I was just very, very distraught. And anyway, my insurance covered it out and, basically wrote me a check out for the money that it was worth. And I bought an Audi Allroad there in Denver to, replace my vehicle. And she kept, telling me she's pregnant and threatening me. And basically, after that campaign was over, she was, basically trying to force me to drive her back to California under some kind of threats. I don't remember at this point what they were, whether it was her brother, Stephen Belangia, and the FBI, or, I think she had said also something about that she had pressed charges, and she kept saying something about, I pressed charges when you escaped the first time to Washington State. I went to the hospital, and there was nothing I could do, and this, that, and the other. Well, it turns out, in the end, what I found out was, from my public defender, that she went and made the report about me beating her up. It had nothing to do with me trying to escape while she was gone. She was just trying to entrap me in some legal problems so I would basically be under her supervision or whatever and couldn't leave the state. I don't even know why she would do what she did. But anyway, so I drive her back to California, and we get in her driveway, and she's like, oh, well, I was trying to drop her off and just leave. And, I was like, whatever, if you're pregnant and I have to pay child support, whatever, I don't want to see you. I don't want anything to do with you. Whatever, I really don't even believe that you're pregnant. This is all just a lie. And, I'm not going to buy your threats about this, that, or the other. I just was, so I was trying to drop her off, and she's like, oh, yeah? Well, you know what? There's actually felony charges against you for you beating me up, Aaron. And she's like, I was like, no, there's not. I was like, you attacked me and I escaped to Washington State, and that was the end of it. And she's like, oh, yeah? Well, I'll prove it to you. So she called the DA right in front of me and asked the DA of Redding to look up the charges, and he did. He said, yep, there's felony corporal spousal abuse charges. And I had only lived in this place for 20 days, 3 weeks, something like that. I was no spouse. I was really only just trying to escape from this crazy lady's house. But the state of California had charged me with felony corporal spousal abuse charges. And then after the DA said that, she hung up the phone, and she told me I could either stay there and tell her I loved her and to develop a life with her, or I could leave and she would help the state of California press felony charges on me. So basically at that point I sunk because my brain was still damaged from what I had told you before, and I just couldn't see a way out, and I couldn't get past her threats and whatever. So I just sunk, and I gave up. And I basically accepted what she said and, stayed with her in her house. And she had promised, she's like, oh, well, if you stay with me, I'll write an actual real letter to the DA saying that I attacked you and you were trying to leave, and tell the real events. And I stayed with her. I don't know how long it was, 2-3 months on felony. There was a felony warrant out for my arrest because I was so frazzled. During that time, she physically abused me, sexually abused me, threatened me with her brother, Stephen Belanger, in the FBI. Still under the guise of that she's pregnant and all this other weird shit. So I finally get up the courage to go turn myself in. And they let me out, I believe, the next day with an ankle bracelet. And, she started writing the letter. And I went and found a job. Condition of me being out was also to not live in the same residence as the supposed victim, Teresa Belanger. So I found a men's sober living house to live in, and it was a really cheap rent. These were good guys, and they went to AA, and I truly believe in being sober and not drinking, so I was right on with these guys. So anyway, I found a job at a Korean barbecue place, and I worked 7 days a week, as many hours as I could, to stay away from Teresa and her threats and her manipulations. And even having ankle bracelet on, Teresa still threatened me if I didn't come over to her house and have sex with her and do whatever she wanted to do, or if I didn't let her borrow my Audi to do things, then she would threaten me or physically abuse me. She would literally come over to my house in the middle of the night, the sober living house, screaming rape in my neighborhood yard. And, she couldn't get the keys to my Audi to use it or drive it around or whatever she wanted to do. Anyway, this lasted for a few months, and I denied every plea deal that this DA offered. I wish I could remember her name. I'm going to get the actual name of this DA from Rob Hammond, but this DA seeing Teresa's letter. Teresa had wrote the letter of recant to describe to the DA and the judge and whoever else she gave the letter to that she was the one who had attacked me and physically assaulted me, and I was trying to do nothing but escape from her house and get away. Anyway, that DA told my lawyer it was the best recant letter that that DA had ever seen in her entire career. And even though she kind of sort of believed it, she was still not willing to give me anything less than a misdemeanor domestic violence. And for what? For what? Me trying to escape while Teresa Belangi is gone, and then she gets home and attacks me and brutally assaults me and throws my stuff all over the driveway. You know, I turned that offer down time and time again. I even fired my first public defender and was fortunate enough to get Rob Hammond, which also has a private practice in Reading. However, it was coming down 2 weeks before trial, and Teresa stalked me, called my work repeatedly, harassed my work phone. Would be waiting for me in the parking lot of my work for me to get off. And just, you know, I mean, it was beyond what I could do, and her threats and everything. And one of the final straws that broke the back of this plea deal was she found out from one of the petitioners, it could have been Weston Mickey, I'm not quite sure, but that after I were to leave, after this court case, I was going to run away and she would never see me again. So in her mind, her little world of the love that I was supposed to give her and the life I was supposed to work out with her was, you know, going to be very short-lived after this court case was over. She found that out, and then she met me in a parking lot after work one day and threatened me with saying that she was going to have her son go claim that I raped him, 16-year-old son. So, you know, I was just up to it. I had so much stress every day and anxiety and PTSD from her entrapment and her threats that, I just gave in. She said if I did not accept the plea deal, she was going to have her son claim that I raped him. Because she wanted me charged because she found out that I was going to run away. So I needed to suffer somehow. I guess that was her train of thought. Anyway, I had one of my good friends, Jim Luchuk, who worked for the Department of Defense for a while. He was a contractor. He told me, get out of there, accept the plea deal, and get out of there. Because I told him how she had been physically assaulting me and harassing me and all kinds of other things, and how crazy she was. And it was literally 2 weeks before the trial, and I wanted to take it to trial, but I couldn't take it anymore. The abuse, physically, mentally, I was drained every single day. I wanted to die rather than live through this hell and this nightmare. So I basically went in the next day and accepted the plea deal of domestic violence misdemeanor. So, folks, I hope this story has been very eye-opening. Unfortunately, at the time I was very, very poor and could not afford a real lawyer, and couldn't afford to even live there in that county or keep fighting it. So, I had to accept this misdemeanor domestic violence to get away from this lady who was terrorizing me physically, mentally, and sexually assaulting me. Anyway, I hope this has been a real eye-opener, and I hope more of you can tell your stories. Thank you.